Hello, one and all. This is the Peace Dealer, and I'm here to give you your episode 5 of Peace Talk, where I profile YouTube astrologers and other personalities as well, spiritualists. And thankfully, this episode I have Scarlet Moon. How you doing, Nico?
Doing all right. How is everybody doing? I was just telling you
Uh,
we got a late start to our morning. So
how do you like your new place?
I like it pretty. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. I miss all my trees. I'm definitely more of a country person, but living back out in Seattle proper is okay too. It's got its perks, so it's not bad. It's not bad.
That's what's up. It's not rainy season anymore, huh? It's just nice and summer.
It's nice and summery. It's about what? It got to about 88 yesterday, and it's supposed to be about the same today. Maybe a little bit of drizzle in the beginning of next week, but all of a sudden, it'll just kind of get back. I mean, we don't really have as much rain, I think, as a lot of people publicize. It's usually winter months, and then, yeah, May through July, it's always pretty clear. So, I mean, it's pretty much like anywhere else.
Cool, cool. Well, for those who aren't aware, Scarlet Moon is another YouTube personality that does an amazing job of like spreading awareness of this new consciousness. And I like how him being a Virgo, he really is able to, talk about these issues, but not in a way that, his head is up in the clouds. He knows how to ground that info to really help you understand it, and best of all, in a very practical way. He even has this one series on YouTube called Practical Tarot Tutor. If you ever want to beef up your tarot skills, totally help mine. So Nico, one thing I really like about you is you don't really focus on just astrology or just tarot. You like to raise awareness of spirituality as it is, and not even just spirituality. Like you'll talk on a lot of topics. So what really got you into this whole like field of metaphysics and spirituality? How did your journey start?
Well, it was kind of a different kind of story for me. Most people kind of have this awakening kind of moment, as they kind of mature. And for me, it was always something. I mean, I guess you could almost say I wouldn't say it's a family trait, but it's kind of like that. I've always grown up with a lot of eclectic spiritualism in the family. My biological mother was actually a rather prominent medium out here in Seattle back in the 80s. Even though ghost hunter shows and things like that weren't really they weren't taking off. She was in a few of those. Even my stepmother, my father, when he remarried, she was actually she practiced a lot of her own eclectic, her own eclectic path as well. And those of you who are familiar with my channel know that I'm not, I'm definitely don't favor one or the other. I mean, I practice my own form of New Age this, witchcraft that, and all kinds of things. And so, I mean, it really it's been with me forever. I picked up the tarot when I was 14, so back in, 98. I picked up astrology a little bit later. Actually, tarot came before the astrology for me. I didn't grab onto astrology until about a few years later. And even then, it was kind of like, I didn't like the image that a lot of authors were presenting and things like that. To me, it just didn't seem like a very exacting kind of science. And then as I, got out and branched out and reached out to more people, I was like, no, this is actually, it doesn't have to be nebulous. And so then it kind of took. But I mean, I wasn't even doing astrology for that whole time, on Scarlet Moon. In fact, before Scarlet Moon, I had another channel, Seattle Soothsayer, that I started back in 2007, 2008, and then I took a hiatus when I got out of college, excuse me, when I finished up my degree, and then I started up Scarlet Moon after that break. I just decided not to go back to Seattle Soothsayer. So it's always been.
That's very, very awesome. I totally believe that from the wisdom that comes from your videos. I noticed, I think one time you mentioned you don't necessarily do 100% Western astrology. Is there a special kind of astrology you use? I think it was Chinese or something.
It's not Chinese astrology. What I actually do is I created. I didn't create because that sounds. Mind the hubris, right? it's more like I incorporate Chinese and Japanese planetary attributions as well. I think that sometimes we get caught on, on different systems, different styles, and different spiritual languages. But when you get to a point where you realize those are all colors of paint on the palette, then you don't really care where it comes from, who said what. Is it, is it Eastern? Is it Western? Is it Christian? Is it not? And for me, I incorporate a lot of those in because it gives me a wider breadth of energy to work with. In Chinese and even in Japanese, understanding, Mercury, for example, is a water planet. We all know Jupiter's a wood planet. Venus is a metal planet, which actually syncs up quite well with ours. But I like grabbing those extra tidbits in there that might actually be more explanatory. So it's working with a different elemental system and a different planetary system to a degree. To a slight degree. It doesn't vary that much, except I like the edge that it gives me when I'm looking into something, because you actually get readings from me, every once in a while, and my videos. I'm also working a lot. I'm also taking my education in psychology and counseling and bringing that to the forefront as well. And funny enough, Chinese, and Japanese attributions of the planets almost work better for that.
Great. That's awesome. My Capricorn is like, as long as it works, that's what it is.
I would only. That's how people ask me what do I think is the best, and I say I judge things based on efficacy. I see great things that people don't know how to use, and I see people who use things that are less commonplace to stunning effectiveness. So judge things based on efficacy. Go with things that work. Don't go with connotations or what's popular or not.
Totally agree. Very, very great. So another thing that I would say even was part of the inspiration of Peace Talk, Scarlet Moon holds collaborative consciousness videos. It's very awesome. He works with a partner, and like I said earlier, like they really talk about real issues in this spiritual community that either other people don't have the time to talk about or just really don't ever get to discuss. And really highly recommend you check it out on his page whenever he schedules these live events. It's very collaborative, like the name implies. You're able to like interact, and they definitely interact back with you, which is what I love, and it's a nice community. So where are you gonna go with collaborative consciousness, and how did you guys even start it up?
Well, it's actually kind of interesting. The partnership between me and Chris is a very interesting one because I think on the surface, oh God, even looking at each other's channels, you wouldn't think these two people would ever even be caught in the same room, much less actually work so well together. And I think that the partnership between me and Chris is a kind of special one because the whole point of it is to be able to kind of, get that harmony and meet in the middle. And we both have a lot of really strong strengths where we are, but we also complement each other very well. It's almost more like complementary consciousness, really. When we look at things, because when we first started talking about actually having collaborative consciousness in the first place, this was back in, I guess you could say, early 2013, and maybe late 2012, when it was very trendy to talk about left brain, right brain consciousness, and how left brain bad and right brain good. But we were it came up over this discussion we had about how it's like, jumping to the opposite extreme isn't exactly the same thing as finding balance. You're just hopping between two sides and propagating a duality. And so a lot of people were really just doing that instead of actually doing the work. And since I'm more left brain looking right, and Chris is more right brain looking left, that meeting of the minds and meeting of the hearts too is actually very easy for us. Because Chris has got a big passion about, kind of unity of body and spirit. He's very big into fitness. He was an MMA fighter. He works at a gym right now. He actually sells herbal health supplements on his new Tip Top Health Store. .com, and so he's got his thing going, and then I'm definitely more about like the mind and heart meets spirit, which is kind of more like, no, we're going to talk about things in a very like you said, grounded, technical kind of fashion, let's not just talk about the fact that you can send a thought out in the universe, will manifest it, and we create energy as our choices and desires that create our universe. Let's talk about how that works, like not as a concept, but as a mechanism. And so Chris really bit off on that, and I like what Chris is talking about. We both have, like I said, educations in psychology, interpersonal psychology, counseling, relationship counseling. We've both worked with people who were drug addicts. We've done a lot of that, like rehab kind of stuff, for people. And so it really kind of came together. It's kind of like, hold on a sec, we both have what the other person really needs. And I mean, we're both, and then, we just became fast friends, very fast friends. Funny enough, it's like we've never done like a synastry chart for like a business partnership, so I'm wondering if this is really supposed to be or not. But no, I mean, we became fast friends. I mean, it's awesome.
That's great. That's great. It's really nice to see like minds really join together and create beautiful things. I'm really excited to see how the both of you will develop. And you have you both done the retreat yet, or is it still being scheduled?
As far as the retreat is concerned, we had a bit of a snag last year. It probably, bad timing on our part. We were trying to run the retreat earlier this year. Was it earlier this year? Yeah, earlier this year, like end of January, early February. Might have been too close to Christmas time, might have been too close to tax time, not sure. So we decided to do kind of a crowdfunding deal because I wanted to do something that's actually financially accessible. Because that's actually another thing that Chris and I are both very passionate about. I feel like there's this sort of shame factor that can come in being the spiritual community about being working class. It's kind of like, they call it poverty consciousness. Oh, why aren't you making a lot of money? Why don't you want to be rich? That kind of thing. If you really care, you'll get the money. And I was just kind of like, no, let's do it differently. So we did a crowdfunding deal. And so we actually have our retreat planned for July of this year up in Seattle. And if you want to come, now that you're on the West Coast, you should definitely come. It's only going to be $225 a person for a 3-day, 3-night stay. That includes room and board. Basically, people just have to pay for their own travel, but it's going to be $225. I have not made an official announcement yet, but I guess I just did, which is going to be really cool. Yeah, no, it's going to be a good time because spirituality should be for everybody. And I think gouging people is also poverty consciousness. So, it happens.
Great. Well, I'll definitely keep that in mind. That might be very doable for me, especially by July. Be like too much from that. So let's. I usually save this for later, but let's do this now in the quick game, real quick.
Okay.
This is when I ask you what are your 3 favorite zodiac signs, and what are your 3 most, not the 3 that you hate, but the 3 that are most challenging for you. And you don't necessarily have to actually do the signs, you could do energies. So let's say you like Venus and Aquarius the most. That could be one of your favorite energies. Okay. If that makes sense.
Well, I have to say right off the bat, because I'm not shy about this. My favorite signs, or people that I personally resonate with, even just based on sun sign, okay, they have to have these somewhere, either moon, ascendant, or sun. Gemini, Scorpio, and Pisces are my and they're all fairly intellectual signs when you think about it. I mean, Pisces is a bit more, I guess you could say, empathic, intuitive, which I really get on with a lot of, obviously. But I also find that Pisces people tend to be very much a bit more aware of the fact that other people exist, and they're very good at being. They're very considerate people. They're not rude. They're not abrupt. Scorpio people I like. I mean, you're an astrologer. Scorpio and Virgo energy are pretty much 2 sides of the same freaking coin. It's just that, I mean, they get along really well. I mean, Scorpio has a tendency for being like this deep, dark, extreme kind of thing, but, Virgo's also pretty, Virgo's kind of, I guess you could say, mechanical and calculated sometimes, and so they both really get along well. And being a Virgo, I don't personally like this sort of, I don't really get on very well with super passive people. I'll put it that way. I think Pisces is passive as I could get. I really like assertive, but I also like intellectual people, and I also like articulate people very much. And so, if somebody has like a Gemini rising, I mean, we're going to get along really well. If somebody has a Scorpio moon, I mean, I always joke about Mike, Indigo Speaker. The only reason that the whole roommate situation worked out as long as it did was because of the fact that he's a Scorpio cusp. You know, it really did kind of save the day. I think that I get along with those signs better. I don't have any particular signs that I don't like. I think that as far as signs that I have a difficult time, I guess you could say warming up to, I think that I have a hard time getting closer to a lot of like really sensualist kind of signs, like ones that have a tendency to become like, super pleasure seekers,
Yeah.
I have a hard time. I have to confess, I have a hard time with Venusian signs, Taurus, Libra. That they can drive me nuts.
They can be very lazy too.
Well, it's not just about being lazy, but sometimes it's a little bit when we get pleasure seeking to the point of, it's almost like a soft addiction. I think it's like sex, food, whatever. And I think those are probably the two signs that take me a while to warm up to. But I have lots of Libran friends. I have lots of Taurus friends. In fact, one of their birthdays is today. And she's a really nice friend of mine. And she and I actually have, I'm friends with her whole family. But it does take a while. It does take a while for me to warm up to it. It really does. But I can only think of two. I mean, I guess if I had to say a third would be the Saturn in Pisces energy.
Oh.
Could
you describe that energy?
Well, the Saturn in Pisces energy, I'm actually working on like a Saturn in the generations kind of thing. And the Saturn
nice.
in Pisces energy is kind of like, I look at it as kind of this sort of lost new era kind of energy. And it's not their fault. It's nobody's fault. It's Saturn in Pisces. But this is the kind of generation that was kind of like, it's the beginning of the new it's like the beginning of Gen X. Like the Saturn in Pisces was like everyone born, like the very last of the baby boomers, and it's also, Saturn in Pisces is also what we talk about. You know how people online, they talk about, the millennials, like the 90s millennials, people, born in the early 90s, and how they lack direction, they don't know where they are, they were overindulged, and it's kind of like, they come up and they're coming of age, and it's kind of like, well, they came into a world that they were not prepared for. I mean, they came into a world where it was kind of like, if you follow the rules and you take these tools we give you and you take these gifts and you do what everyone says, you'll be taken care of. And that happened before, in the end of the 60s, and then they turned into the Gen X situation, with the 70s and the early 80s, and it's happening again nowadays. And again, it's nobody's fault, but I think I have a difficult time dealing with that energy because I think that a lot of that energy is still kind of waiting for people to kind of make good on the promises they made when they were being conditioned. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does a bit. It really do resonate a lot with that. I feel like I know someone I was talking to recently who has her Saturn in Pisces, and like she'd get offered drugs like left and right, even more, which I'm sure, I mean, drugs have always been freely offered, but definitely that generation. The only thing I found interesting was, I was thinking because of her Saturn in Pisces, because she was saying she was able to just, say no to them and reject them really easily. So I was feeling there's a kind of duality. People could either like really not be lost in the Pisces illusion, or they just have no discipline with that.
Well, I don't necessarily think it's Pisces illusion. I think it's actually more of this sort of blind trust. I mean, when you think about what Pisces is, like, Pisces is not stupid. Pisces has, Pisces is supposed to be an old soul. Pisces is the oldest sign. So you have to think about taking care of a Pisces adolescent the same way you would take care of, you treat a Pisces adolescent and talk to a Pisces adolescent with the same way you would talk to a Pisces senior citizen. You have to, you can't talk down to them, you can't shepherd them around, you can't, you can't condition them to think that their whole life is on a conveyor belt. I mean, how many people, were graduating from high school in 2008, 2009, 2010, and coming into, just a cracked up U.S. economy, and the whole time it was like, join these clubs, go to this school, do this thing, you're the captain, you're the best, you're the greatest, here's an iPhone, and it's kind of like, they just spent 20 years thinking they were set, and then you tell them, oh wait, no, I'm sorry, your whole development was actually kind of like in this bubble, and that's the world. That's not their fault, but that's what happens with Saturn and Pisces, because you build up this really trusting sort of follow-me nature, and it can be abused. And maybe the duality is in the sense that a lot of Saturn and Pisces people get the duality of, do they rebel or do they follow? And when they rebel pretty hard, and it's hard to come to a middle ground. So, maybe that's the duality for me, or what I see in it. I mean, I'm a Saturn and Scorpio person, as you know, so.
That was very beautifully put. I'm really looking forward to that series.
Thanks.
Putting the generational sign, that would be awesome. So, okay. Before we play one more game, I'm going to ask you, what is the favorite part of your chart? Whether it's an aspect or a planet in a sign, what do you like the most?
About my chart?
Yeah.
Shit. I don't want to cuss. Let me think here. I've got a few. I would have to say Mars in Virgo is one of them. Believe it or not, I think that Mars in Virgo and then having my in a Cancer midheaven are really, those are the two that I like the most, and they're in very social areas of my chart. I mean, the Mars in Virgo is in my 11th, and the midheavens obviously is in my 9th. But I think that the Mars in Virgo, I don't so much think about the house, I think about the Mars in Virgo energy. And I mean, and like I said, you know who I am, you know how I am, you know the Scarlet Moon online channel. It's really about you win through precision, you succeed through precision and being articulate, and it even kind of branches into what I've wanted to create, what Scarlet Moon is supposed to be, and it's about, okay, now you know anime, all right, yeah. You know anime. Mars in Virgo to me is I guess you could say it's the Sesshomaru. It's
Sesshomaru.
Yeah, you don't lose your temper. You don't lose your temper. You don't lose your focus. You stay classy. You have your strength, and it's all about precision. You're not freaking out. You're not wailing. You don't lose your composure ever. You're there, and you're present, and you know how to speak your piece, and you know how to speak it in such a way that nobody will misunderstand a word you're saying unless they're not paying attention. That's my favorite thing, I think. Yeah, Mars and Virgo for sure.
I love that. Could you remind me, is Sesshomaru from Inuyasha?
Yes, he's the older brother.
Oh, yes. Oh, okay, yes. That is so Mars and Virgo.
Swag the whole way across. Yeah, that's how I feel. He's like, yeah, that's a classic,
Yeah. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this game we're gonna play. We're gonna take turns asking each other 3 questions, like and/or questions.
Okay.
I'll go first. They have to be. Actually, no, they don't even have to be Zodiac. We'll just ask each other 3 questions. So, who do you think? What Zodiac sign do you think Jesus and Buddha were?
I think that they were both Pisces.
Interesting. 2 Pisces.
I do. I really do. Well, it depends on which incarnation of the Buddha, though.
Oh, that's true.
I mean, the first Buddha, you look back, was an exorcist, so he was probably a Virgo or a Scorpio. Because they're kind of like the doctors and the cleanup crew of the Zodiac. And so if we're talking about the first Buddha being an exorcist out of India, then yeah, we're looking at probably a different sign. But if we're talking about you know, like Gautama Siddhartha Buddha, you know, or, you know, and Christ, I think we're still definitely talking Pisces. I think we're still definitely talking Pisces. I can see Christ as an Aquarian as well, but...
Yeah, I was thinking he could be an Aquarius, but Pisces does make a lot of sense.
I think Pisces, just because there's... Aquarians are on a mission, and sometimes being on a mission, it's not easy to do unconditional love and be on a mission, whereas, you know, I mean, I'm not saying, like, all Aquarians are, like, ICP on a mission, but it's, you know, I think that Jesus would be a Pisces, for sure.
Yeah, I remember this one passage when he went through the Transfiguration, and then Peter was like, "Oh, let's make tabernacles and write about it." And I was like, "Yeah, that seems like a Gemini Pisces dynamic because Jesus just put Peter to sleep. Go to sleep. You talking too much. This isn't meant for us."
That's definitely why I would think that he would be a Pisces, because it was like he never ever, and this is such a wonderful Pisces quality, he never wanted his teachings to become political doctrine.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, he never wanted a church of Christ. He wanted people to change. That's all. And we still have people today whom, even in the spiritual community, ones that work with you and me, ones that work with us on YouTube, who may still be kind of pushing a bit of a dogma, even if they don't know they are. You know,
Yeah.
and so it's interesting. It's interesting that, you know. So I think that that's such a Pisces thing, because a Pisces thing is all about. It's like no, integrate. You know, which I think is probably why it's, you know, I mean, it's the 12th. Of course, it's going to be about integration. You know, integration is the crucible of transmutation. You know, that's kind of what I would think. Is it my turn?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let me think. A question for you. Okay. Whom, and this is going to be fun. All right. Whom do you think has a more volatile temper? Moon in Aries, which is pretty stereotypical, or a moon in Aquarius?
Oh, that's very interesting. I personally know a moon in Aquarius. I have never, ever, ever seen her angry.
Really?
Yeah. I've seen a moon in Aries angry, like completely flipped. And she was a Libra too, so that's someone I never thought I would ever see angry. But yeah, I would have to go with moon in Aries. I think for a moon in Aquarius to snap, you would really have to, like, I think they would have, you just have to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. If they were stressed all day, and because they'll snap worse than a moon in Aries, that's for sure. But as far as, like, control and volatility, I think, yeah, moon in Aries is, they could just combust the wrong way.
I guess you're right. I guess that, yeah. I guess it's like, well, I guess a moon in Aries would combust more often, but when, God forbid, an Aquarius does, you know, it's like comparing a hydrogen bomb to a bonfire. So it's, you know, it's a little bit different.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree. All right. Okay.
Bless you.
Thank you. All right. Let's see. What do you feel is the who would make a better who would make a better psychologist? Sun in Scorpio or Moon in Pisces?
Sun in Scorpio.
Yeah, sounds a bad question.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because my camera was making it funny. I would definitely say Sun in Scorpio. Now, this might sound counterintuitive.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We'll answer that right now. But after you answer that, my question is, who would make the best psychologist for a Scorpio, other than another Scorpio?
Okay. Well, the reason I say a Sun in Scorpio would make a better psychologist than the Pisces one, um, I think that sometimes with Pisces, um, there's a certain limit that, and when you do work in psychology, you do work in counseling, and you're working, like, you're a counselor in a rehab center and things like that, I mean, you have to keep these things in mind. The goal is to get the person better. Piscean people, Piscean energy, I guess is a better way to put it, because it doesn't matter if it's a sun, moon, Jupiter, whatever. Piscean energy has a tendency sometimes to get stuck in that place of, I'm always healing but never healed. Mm-hmm. And that can also create a dangerous kind of, I guess you could say, playing field or sharing ground. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I think that Scorpio might be better, because I think that Scorpio, while Scorpio has this reputation for being devastatingly frank, maybe even emotionally inconsiderate with how blunt they can be, I think that a Scorpio would actually still be able to hold a person and their story accountable. A Scorpio is going to remind you of how much progress you're making. A Scorpio is not going to tell you you're making progress when you're not making progress in your healing. A Scorpio is going to tell you, I mean, that's why I think so many Scorpio, I mean, believe it or not, a lot of Scorpios are actually physical therapists. Working in injury hospitals and things like that. You wouldn't believe it, but it's true, because they're better motivators. I think that sometimes we think that we need, I think that maybe it's a bit, it's kind of a gradient scale, though. I mean, I can see a Pisces being great in the beginning, but it's kind of like now that it's kind of like now being with the Saturn and Scorpio, Pluto and Capricorn. It's like we had our Pisces lovely introduction, 2009, 10, 11. It's time to wake up, guys. Don't worry, we're going to do it gently. And now it's kind of like, all right, guys, now we're kind of in a different place. We're in a place where we need to be a little bit more mature, a little bit more accountable, and a little bit more disciplined. So Scorpio energy, Scorpio energy, Scorpio energy. Stop floundering about. Stop being too, and so I think that I would have Pisces be in charge of, an introductory kind of thing.
Okay.
But I would have Scorpio. I personally would want a Scorpio if I needed it. I would count on a Scorpio to heal me faster and heal me honestly. Not that a Pisces would be dishonest. I just think that a Pisces might be a bit generous with time.
Mm. Yeah. Oh yeah. Some Pisces have no sense of time, and it's irks me.
Yeah. As far as who should be a psychologist for a Scorpio, I think it's the same logic applies. I would give a Scorpio to a Capricorn, and I would give a Scorpio to a Virgo, and depending on which decanate the Scorpio was.
That's true. That's very true.
If they were like a Cancer Scorpio, I think that they would do well with another Cancer. And if there were, and that's basically the one exception I would make. But I would say an older Earth sign, like a Virgo or a Capricorn, would probably be good for a Scorpio, because they like to. Scorpios will cooperate. The problem that Scorpios have that I've noticed, because like I said, I have 100 kabillion Scorpio friends. Like all my friends are Scorpios, for the most part. I think that Scorpios get pissed when people ask them to do something, tell them to do something, and they can't explain themselves. It's the same pet peeve Virgos have. So I'm kind of like, I get you. You need a sign. You're going to need a psychologist who's going to treat you like an equal, not like a patient. And I think that Capricorns are really good for that. Actually, I think Capricorns might be better for that than Virgos.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Let's see. Question for you. What do you think is actually better in terms of global astrology, better for the world? What better energy Do you think that Jupiter in Leo is going to be better than Jupiter has been in Cancer, or do you think it's going to be worse?
That is a really great question. I really believe Jupiter in Leo is going to be so positive, but it's inevitably going to make some harsh angles, and even during the positive angles, I feel like in America, it'll be really, really awesome, but still really bad for those who are, not living with integrity. I feel like, something like Donald Sterling getting exposed by the Clippers, that kind of stuff will be more exposed and more, um, critically received. Like, people will be more pissed off about stuff like that because of all this fire energy. And I think there may be more resurfacing of chaos as far as, you know, not necessarily war, but any kind of situation between connections with other countries, just because of this urgent feeling we may feel of needing to like handle things now. But yeah, I'm kind of mixed about it. I definitely would say Jupiter in Leo, because Jupiter in Cancer was just really internal for everyone, and just to be able to express this all out, it'll really make everyone, at least more Pharrell, happy. But since they'll be more expressive, it is going to, also cause the potential for more, maybe. I know in Nigeria there was another bombing recently. I definitely could see way more of that with Jupiter and Leo, because it's just way more passion, way more like,
It's interesting that you mentioned that, the harsh angles and everything, because I know I totally see what you're talking about. I'm looking forward to it because it's going to be in my 10th house, but
nice.
It's also going to be squaring my Saturn, my Pluto, my everything. It's going to happen that way. But it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I've actually been talking to a couple of people. And I do have readings for people. I do readings for people who are on television and things like that, even politicians. And I feel like for people who are really trying to be in that public spotlight, or they can't help it, like, 'cause that's their job, like I said, if they're in politics, or if they're an actor, or they want to be, or a musician in your case, Jupiter in Leo, it's like, yes, it's definitely busting out. It's definitely having fun. It's sharing. It's caring. It's all that kind of great stuff. But I also notice with Jupiter in Leo, it's almost like you have to live your life. Everyone has to live their life like it's paparazzi everywhere. You don't want something to get out, it gets out. I mean, it's the other side of the coin to the fame and fortune that Leo is supposed to be. It makes Leo bigger. So now it's like, if you're in the habit of making sure everybody knows your business, I guess you're okay. But some people might not necessarily want that. I also think that we may actually start to see more turmoil in, I guess you could say, public outlets, public spotlights. I feel like this may actually be like the final bang of celebrity reality TV, kind of like worship for the sake that they're on a screen. I feel like there's like this last hurrah, like the candle burns brightest before it goes out, and then it's over. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. I was thinking when Jupiter moves into Virgo, how all that could just quickly die down. Just like,
yeah.
Let's get back to reality.
Well, and that's, and there's nothing wrong with taking a break. There's nothing wrong with having fun. There's nothing wrong with being famous. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be famous. But I think that it's the value that needs to change. If you think about things like people who are like, am I ever going to get famous? I just want people to love me. Okay. A Virgo is going to unravel that for you and be like, well, what needs healing? There's nothing wrong with wanting to be famous, to have your message spread. But if it's more about you getting attention than it is about the product you're offering, whether it's your performance, whether it's your book, your music, your product, then there's no substance in it, and then we just have another shallow person who should just go on you know, who should just go on reality TV as opposed to cultivating something useful for the world, you know?
Very, very, very great insight. That was very awesome. Well, for my final question, on a scale from 1 to Chuck Norris, how awesome is bacon?
How awesome is bacon?
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm more of a sausage guy, I have to say, like really spicy Italian sausage. I'm going to give it a 4. And I'm sorry, everyone's going to give... You actually did sound effects. Okay. No, yeah.
That wasn't me. That was the bacon gods. You pissed them off.
I'm sorry, bacon gods. Well, I eat other parts of the damn pig. No, it's... I'm not a bacon person. I've never been a big bacon person. I've never been a big breakfast person, to be honest, though.
Me too.
I know you can put bacon on other things, sandwiches, but it's like let's talk about pork chops. I could go on for days about pork chops. When you think about it, that's just like 18 strips of bacon piled on one, right?
Interesting. I never thought of it that way.
You know, so maybe I could give it a higher number, but I already did. I can't take it back now.
Hey, at least you're honest. That's all I ask.
All right. So let's see here. I have to. Oh, no, it's your question now. I already did my question.
I just asked you about bacon.
Oh, that's your final question, bacon? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. We'll bring it back. We'll bring it back. Let's see here. Okay. 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 We'll go back to astrology. Do you believe that the U.S. acts like a Cancer, or do you believe it acts more like it's Sagittarian ascendant?
Oh, wow. That's very interesting. That's very interesting. Is that what it has? It has a Sag rising?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I'm going to have to go with a Cancer because there's since Capricorn's the opposite side, then if I look at, even though it's a Sun in Cancer, if I look at, if I acted as if the DC point was Capricorn, because I really get a Capricornish vibe from America when I think of its corporate structure. Mm-hmm. So that's the only reason why I'd say Cancer, because I don't necessarily feel a Cancer vibe, but because it feels so Capricornian, I kind of equate it to that. But I mean, the Sag rising makes sense just because of the ideas of freedom and expansiveness. So I would actually say it is more like a Sag rising, but actually, yeah, I'm going to say it's more like a Sag rising. Yeah. Which will be very interesting then, since Jupiter will go into Leo, because it'll be... Well,
it's also going to be crossing the U.S.'s midheaven, which is also in Leo. It's closer to the end of Leo, though. It's like, I think it's like 20 degrees Leo, so it's not going to happen this year. But it'll, because there's always that one Jupiter retrograde. So it'll probably happen maybe like a year from now, probably in like April, May. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. So no, I was just curious because I kind of have my thoughts about that myself, and I kind of feel like I can definitely see the Cancer side of it, at least in its origins. I mean, when you think about it, you know, the U.S. usually has made some efforts and spearheaded a lot of, you know, efforts in terms of civil rights. You know, from, you know, whether you're a woman, you know, a racial minority, gay, it doesn't matter. You know, things are actually kind of on the way there. It really helps that we have that. But that Leo midheaven really does also kind of show like how the U.S. kind of, you know, for the last 100, 200 years has kind of held, I guess you could say, the global spotlight.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so it's really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. That's nice to know. That's really nice to know as a Leo midheaven and a Sag rising. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask you a few more questions to wrap up. Another thing about you is you are homosexual, and I think it's cool how you're open with it. And what do you feel um, how do you feel that impacts the community? Do you feel, I mean, it's not like Christianity, so thankfully there aren't people that are closed off to it, but how do you feel being homosexual, like, not impacts the community, but how do you feel being, being one, or identifying yourself as one in this community?
I don't think it really has any impact at all. To be perfectly honest, it's just not something I don't believe in identification, especially not body identification. And I feel like even though in the spiritual community where you say it's not a Christian community, a lot of people still come with conditioning or strong Christian overtones. Believe it or not, there are still plenty of people out there who throw things around where it's like it's slightly homophobic or it's sexist. It happens. It happens. I actually saw this woman who I think you actually saw. I posted on my Facebook a couple of months ago. It was about this woman who was posting things about how, like, okay, like when we talk about twin flames. Well, gay people, the reason they're gay is because they're afraid of the opposite energy duality. And so it was like just this kind of just garbage. Just garbage. Because you don't find your twin flame until you're 100% both in and of yourself anyway. But I think that for me, it doesn't impact me as much because I don't make a big deal out of it. I know plenty of other gay people who make a big deal out of it, being gay. But then again, I grew up very lucky. I grew up with a stepmother who opened for Joan Jett, and I had, and then I have a father who's just basically like this left-wing holdover hippie, super involved in politics. I mean, we knew that people could be gay when we were growing up. And I mean, it's like my mother's best friend who, I mean, he was a gay man, and Uncle Mark, and I mean, it was just always there. And so for me, I never developed this sort of stigma, this sort of anger. In fact, most of the people I have debates with, that I have arguments with, are other gay people. In high school, in college, I mean, I've been out for a long time. I had to figure out what gay meant, and I was just telling everybody, like, I didn't care. Nobody gave me crap for it. Probably because I'm a pretty scary person. But the thing is that I don't think being gay makes any difference whatsoever. If you let it make a difference, it will make a difference. If you grow out of the need to fit into another label, or to let that categorization, that identity rule you, it will make a difference, positive or negative. But it doesn't have to. It can just all be good. I have more issues with people, honestly, like, with the fact that I have spells and I talk about witchcraft traditions and things like that. That's where I get all my fun controversy in the New Age community. Being gay, who cares?
I really respect that about you. Like, you don't market it. You don't say you're a gay astrologer. You don't, like, try and anchor that. You're you. That's it. Just you acknowledge as a deeper part. So yeah, let's talk about this witchcraft. That is another thing about you that you're not afraid to mention and talk about. How is that developing for you? And are you going to offer anything to well, you have been, but is there any developments on that end as far as raising more awareness?
Well, I do sell oil.
And clearing it up.
I'm sorry, what?
I was going to say, and clearing it up so people don't get false misconception.
Oh, people are going to get false misconceptions if they want to get false misconceptions. That's just basically how it goes. I mean, as you know, I do sell, like, oils, candles, incense, and all that kind of good stuff. Witchcraft has been with me forever. And it's not really witchcraft in the sense that you would look at it. I mean, I guess you could say I'm very eclectic. I believe that the limits of our spiritual language are the limits of our capacities and the limits of our capabilities and the limits of our universe. So if you come into your sense of spiritual growth with, only understanding things that can be told to you one way, not learning how to say it any different way, not learning how to hear it another way, you're cheating yourself. You can't tell Spirit, Source, God how to talk to you. Like, oh, can you please put that in something a little bit more Christian-friendly or something a bit more secular atheist-friendly? And it's like, well, I can. But can you put it in terms that are not so biased? let's see, I have, I do basic, as far as like what I study, what I work with, I guess you could say on a more consistent basis. I can pretty much work with anything though. I actually focus a lot on the Onmyodo, which is actually the Shinto. It's Shinto folk magic. It's a little bit older. It's from the feudal era. It actually is a revitalization of Shenism, which is the animistic religion that basically was all over Japan and Southeast Asia. And from Shenism is where we actually got Taoism and Confucianism, which a lot of people will preach until they're blue in the face. And then we also got, let's see here, yeah, I practice some hoodoo, which is really just 100 billion different things. Yes, I do work with Celtic and pagan traditions. Yes, I do work with angels. I feel like we're telling spirit how to come to us according to our childhood programming sometimes when people get freaked out about the idea of saying spell. Well, a spell is really just a thought form. And funny enough, it's like I treat my spirituality more like a martial art. And it's through studying all these paths and through studying more paths that, again, it's kind of we were talking about at the beginning of the video, that I'm learning not just like what happens in the universe, but how it happens, how the energies come together and work, how the energies work when you're projecting a thought, why that thought isn't manifesting, why burning incense does something, why, instead of just like, oh, I think it's because of our choices and the paradigm and buzzwords, it's like, no, it's really getting into a much more technical place if you give it the chance. And I'm not saying everyone needs to go practice witchcraft. I'm saying everyone needs to stop thinking that your baseline religion is still the only language you can learn. That's all I'm saying.
That's very beautiful. Especially, you mentioned how before. Not necessarily how to do this, but just the word how, which is really confirming. In this mutable axis, I feel like Gemini represents what, Sagittarius why, Virgo how, and Pisces asks those questions of what, why, how. But interesting. Yeah, I feel like the beautiful thing about this new age is, there obvious, like you just said, there really is no right or wrong way to do this. Like it's going to be as unique as what you come up with the uniqueness of your soul, bridging all these things that have been out. So to conclude, what is your advice to anyone who wants to step in their identity and do what we do and raise awareness? What advice would you give them?
Well, as far as what advice I would give, you talking about, maybe working in like publication or broadcasting, things like that, or you mean just kind of in general, just spreading the word?
Both.
Both, okay. I think that my best advice for somebody would definitely be learn your language, know who you're talking, know what you're talking about, and also remember your audience finds you. Your audience finds you because there are a lot of people that I've met who've come and gone in the spans of time that some of us who've been been around for a little while have been here. And your audience finds you. You might not necessarily know who resonates with you on this kind of public broadcast kind of spectrum. And if you're going up there and you're articulating your truth in a way that's basically very informative, you're minding ephemerality, and you're making sure that you don't make people wait too long or have to work too hard to know what you're saying, you're going to find your people, you're going to find your tribe. But this is a good way to have your tribe find you. And what I also want to talk about, because like David Paulman and I, we're friends on Facebook. We chat all the time. There's a certain level, and the thing that he and I always joke about is this notion of competition. Your tribe comes to you because there is no competition. There's never a competition. Some people compete for, in terms of like views or, money and all that kind of stuff. Whatever. That's all fun and games. Everyone has friendly rivalries. I'm even a friendly rival to some degree with Chris, and he's my business partner. That's okay too. Oh yeah. He doesn't know it, but I know it. No, I'm kidding. The thing is he's just got green screens. Damn it. The thing is, you've got to understand that your audience is your audience. Your audience, your tribe is unique to you. And so don't go out there and try and emulate somebody. This is not like getting into, you know, to the entertainment industry or the music industry. There's no channel to go through, no all-knowing guide. You know, no guidebook or no nothing. You go up there and as long as you speak well, you speak politely, you speak intelligently and confidently, your tribe will find you. But the second you start putting on masks, dressing, acting, and behaving like somebody else because you think that's what's going to do it, you're either doing it for the wrong reasons or you need to learn how to market yourself better. And by marketing, I mean sincerely, not any of that sad PR, sorry, that sad PR BS. You know, I mean, what you want to talk about what's going out of style in the universe. I mean, that whole thing is, you know, it's going to be gone here pretty soon. I mean, you wait. You've got maybe 2 more years, and then Saturn's going right back into Capricorn. You're totally effed. So I would definitely say, you know, hone your language and your craft, and let your tribe find you, because it will. It always does.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So I have your channel in the description box. Is there any other way people can reach you if they want to get a reading or chat you up?
You can just type in one word, Scarlet Moon Online, into your search box. You can find me on YouTube. I've also got a Google Plus page on there I've been adding people to regularly. If you type in Scarlet Moon on Facebook, I've got a Facebook fan page, which is actually probably the best way to get a hold of me, because I don't share that inbox with my email, which gets really spammed, and I don't share my you know, my YouTube with it. So I think Facebook would be better. Just look up Scarlet Moon on Facebook. Just type it in Scarlet Moon, not Scarlet Moon Online, Scarlet Moon. Or you can just check any of the links on my videos on my channel. There's links to it everywhere. There's also a Collaborative Consciousness Facebook page that I also run admin on with Chris. And Chris has got his new TikTok Healthcare Facebook one too. So I mean, it's like there's a million different ways you can get a hold of me. So those would be the easiest ways. I do have I think that Facebook actually would probably be the best way though. I think Facebook would be better than Google Plus personally, because I mean basically the way Google Plus is organized. And this is if you've been curious why maybe messages don't get to like another YouTube or something. It's like they do have a lot of people commenting all the time. Their alerts, you know, that message is lost in like a sea of alerts. So I would definitely recommend doing the Scarlet Moon Facebook page. You can instant message me on that.
Perfect, perfect. Well, thanks one and all for tuning in. And next week we're going to interview Penny Astrology. So that should be pretty interesting.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me, Michael. It was a pleasure. Hopefully we can get you on Collaborative Consciousness one of these times. We're doing it more on a bi-weekly basis, though, so I'll have to keep you updated.
Okay, yeah, for sure. That would be really awesome. I always enjoy that. And the vibes. All right, with it now. Peace.